Hello, fifth period mythology. I'm sorry. I don't know what that was. Okay. Hello, fifth period mythology. I am Trinity. I'm here joined with my brother Gavin, the co-host. And, what are we getting ourselves into today,
We're talking about the fish people, bro.
Yeah.
The mermaids.
People,
no, that's trademark, okay? We're going to have to get, some sort of lawsuit. Fish people, meaning mermaids and sirens. What are they? What's the difference? And why are they relevant?
Man, that is perfect.
Yes.
So
you just ruined it.
I know. I'm sorry.
All right.
we're gonna talk about those
mermaids.
Mermaids. Yeah, we're gonna just talk all about them. Your guys are gonna enjoy it. We're gonna talk about all the fun stuff.
At least
the naked
two of
women.
you will want to bash your head in.
Yeah, at least two of you are going to be like, this is ridiculous. So we're going to jump right in. So the difference between these two is that there's really no difference at all, except for their appearance and what they are used as and their culture for that myth.
It's one of those mythological stories where it's the same idea put through a different prism of culture.
Exactly. So we got in the Greek mythology, we got the Sirens, which are bad people, and then we got the mermaids in different cultures,
which are a bit more romantic, but still bad.
They're pretty sexy people.
Yeah.
So we're gonna jump right in, and we're gonna talk about the fun stuff first, because I know we don't want the fun stuff for last. That's not how it works in 2020.
We will grind your skull.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about the Brazilian Virgin.
Yes.
Which, as we can clearly see on this website,
is naked.
Yeah, completely naked. And when you look into mermaids throughout all mythology, it's going to be the same thing. They're all going to be beautiful women.
And they will always be naked.
There's some cases that they're not.
True.
But most of the time, very rare. So we're going to talk about the Brazilian Virgin. So in the Brazilian myth, we have Ira, who is the Lady of the Waters. And she is known, originally she was known to be a water snake. So she was just like a little serpent, swimming away and just being like, hey, bro. Mm-hmm. But now, throughout
as
the time
has passed through, the story has evolved into this mermaid figure.
Yeah, she evolved into a beautiful, immortal woman with green eyes, brown skin, beautiful lady. And she would just lure the sailors.
Almost like a temptress.
Yeah, she would just lure the sailors into her underwater palace. She wouldn't kill them, and she would just make them her lovers. And that's it. There's no death or anything, but they're pretty much...
It's in a way unknown because she does lure them into the water.
Yeah.
Which could potentially cause death.
Yeah, it could potentially. They can't hold their breath unless they can hold their breath for pretty long. So, Ira is actually blamed a lot for the accidents in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. So, when you look into all these stories, it's mainly about how they were, how shipwrecks happen.
How disappearances occurred, how certain people died mysteriously, usually young men, as that was the more targeted section, usually because those men inside that community were the less trained, less experienced when going out into things like the wild and potentially getting bitten by some sort of venomous snake or dangerous animal, or eating a certain plant, or getting hit by a rock in the water.
It's just like with any mythology. Like, you're going to look at, the creation of how, every version of it's different. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, the Japanese version is pretty interesting and...
ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly, but it's not a bad thing. And they consider it actually a monster. And Japanese folklore, they talk about a giant fish with a human face and a monkey mouth. So it's a pretty ugly looking thing. And sometimes in different stories you'll see it have horns or fangs. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that it's pretty much just a fish. And what they would do is, I forgot to say, it's called the Nagayo. So when they find the Nagayo, if they eat it, they will get eternal youth and beauty. But catching one
and keeping it alive,
often brings terrible storms and misfortune to entire villages. So they don't really describe it on here. It's as if if you eat it, that you'll get good things, but other people will get bad things, or if you just keep it alive or whatnot.
This could be related. Connecting it back to the real world, if a fisherman, because Japanese people living on an island relied heavily on fishing, it could relate to how if certain fishermen didn't pay attention enough to their fish that they caught, or potentially caught fish that they knew were bad and left it alive to potentially rot or some sort, could cause the rest of the people who will consume that food to get sick.
Exactly.
And the consumption of it could be keeping yourself nourished and not starving yourself for the greater of the community. If you have a good fish, eat the good fish.
Eat the good fish. We're also going to kind of jump into the bad version of the mermaid. You know, this isn't technically a siren. It would fall under the category of one, but it's not. So we're going to talk about the Russian version. Of
course it's Russian.
Yeah, the Russian.
And it is called?
Oh, this one is called the
Rusalka.
Rusalka. The Rusalka mermaid.
Which is clothed.
Yeah, she's actually clothed in this, which is kind of funny. But pretty much, originally, she was a mermaid who would come out the water and water the crops. But in mythology, in different parts of it, they had a darker side. So the Rusalka would be the spirit of girls who would die violently and lure in men and children to their own watery deaths. So it's pretty much the spirit of other women, and they're like, we're going to lure this guy in because I died pretty bad, so we're going to make him die pretty bad. And the way they would do it is that they would use their long hair to trap and entangle their victims, just like how I do with the vacuum cleaner. Yeah. So I'm a Rusalkic in my own home.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And since we're actually talking about the bad version, we're going to jump into Sirens.
That's
which
true.
The main siren
is of Western culture.
Yeah, is of Western culture. It's
which
Greek
you
mythology.
could argue the Rusalka is of Western culture, but we're not going to touch into that.
Yeah, we're just going
to go into the general idea, which originated from Greece.
Yeah, we're going to talk about sirens. So pretty much, they were sea nymphs, which kind of is a funny word, who would lure in sailors to their death by their beautiful song. I don't even know what it is.
The singing was believed in a way to manipulate or hypnotize the men into falling in love through the sound. It would travel in through their ear and then get into their soul or their brain or whatever and make them essentially fall in love with these creatures, which, on top of the hypnotism, they were also very beautiful. Yeah. So it was very easy for them to be captured.
So they were also formerly the handmaidens of the goddess Persephone. And, you know, in class we look over Hades and Persephone pretty well. So when she was secretly abducted by Hades, Demeter gave them the bodies of birds and to help them find Persephone, pretty much. And then they eventually gave up and just went out of their own way. They just made, according to this site, they just kind of went to a flowery island and chilled. They just said, you know what? It's been too long. So that's what they did. But the sirens were, there's a famous way, the famous version of sirens is the Odyssey. And in the Odyssey poems, they talk about how Odyssey is on his way to a certain place, I believe. I completely forgot what it was called.
Most likely it would have been some sort of trading center or fishing area, but either...
Well, no, he was going on his way to somewhere, a part of his journey in the poem. So this was one of his, fallbacks on his journey. And he knew about the sirens, and he faintly heard the song. And before he could fall into that song, he made all the sailors and everybody plug their ears with wax so that they wouldn't fall under their hypnosis. And they were so, the sirens were so mad that they saw a man, hear their song but escape, that they threw themselves in the sea and drowned themselves. They literally killed themselves because they were like, what? You know, they just saw them. Imagine you are a siren. You're sitting on a rock. You're like, this boy's gonna come to me for sure. And then all of a sudden,
I'm going to eat him.
Yeah, they're like, I'm ready to eat this meal, and they just drive right by. That's it. They don't even notice you. It's like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to live for. And then boom, done. That's it. So, you know, we're gonna talk about we're gonna go a little past all the past. We're going to go now into the future. Yeah. So the difference now with mermaids is that they're not really... modernized. It's more modernized.
It's very modernized.
And also, it's just more of a playful thing. Yeah. It's just like a little thing, like H2O.
The scariest mermaid to come out, that's not counting any sort of horror movie, would probably be Pirates of the Caribbean. And even then, the mermaids are depicted to have a good side.
Yeah.
Which, in their defense, Disney has to keep things G-rated.
Exactly.
Which is one major factor, I should say, in how the myth through our time now is even changing still.
Yeah.
Nothing stays solid with these stories. They are always fluid and being reshaped through time.
Yeah, exactly. And, for example, H2O, so it's a basic little show that you can watch, and it's on, I think it was on Netflix for a long time, and it's just these girls, and then all of a sudden they turn into mermaids. It's just little stuff like that. Pirates of the Caribbean, we see Sirens lure in the sailor and kill them.
The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and then we also see in certain shows the actual the Siren, where it's kind of, you get to see her side. She actually is able to talk. Unlike most of the mermaids in all these myths are all mute, by the way. They're all mute. They're all beautiful mute ladies. Wouldn't that be such a nice life?
That ironically can sing.
Yeah, ironically can sing sometimes. So, yeah. Nowadays, it's more of just a playful little thing. They have no purpose or reason.
Only purely entertainment now. There's no need for the story to contain any sort of warning or sort of purpose, so we've taken it and repurposed it to entertain ourselves.
Exactly. And, the difference here with nowadays and back then is that they actually had a purpose for these stories. Like you said, an example for the Greek version.
The Greeks, for example, Sirens could have been a way of telling certain sailors to be wary of certain areas, because if you look at the geography of Greece, there are many rocky islands, and a lot of the cases, Sirens would lure in young sailors, and young sailors were usually unexperienced with the area that they were fishing or going in, so it would be very likely for them to crash into the rocks.
Exactly.
And also, if you do look at older maps, which nowadays we have just danger rocky area, they could have put the symbol of a mermaid to give sailors a hint or sort of a gesture that this area is dangerous,
so don't
for ships, so don't go near there.
Exactly. And, like I said, the real difference is that there's a monster and a beauty. Beauty and the Beast, but with fishtails and scales and a lot of naked women. And sometimes wings.
But one thing they're always connected in is a very sinister sense of romance.
A very sinister sense of romance. All right, guys. So I hope you guys like our talk about the mermaids and sirens, even though they're the same thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I hope you guys learned something. I would highly suggest researching this topic. I know it sounds weird. Yeah, I know. If you're interested, it's just a great thing to research. You find so many interesting stories that will literally blow your mind in half. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy our little podcast. I know it's 13 minutes long, but you know what? I'm happy you hung in here. And I will see you when I get my grade. All right. Say goodbye, Gavin.
Bye.
Bye.